Hey everybody, I am very lucky that Casey from the Switchcast, and I believe other podcasts as well, has decided to come on by and have a quick conversation about video games. So hello Casey, welcome aboard.
Hey, how's it going? What should I refer to? RJS? I see the logo and that's all I think of as your name.
Yeah, RJS, or you could just call me Bill, is fine.
Okay, well, we're very big into initialisms with all our shows, so I'm just used to that.
Right, RC and JV, they have that has a certain ring to it. I imagine if anybody comes on your show and they don't have the ending, like their last name doesn't end with an E sound at the end, it's just like, okay, nope, you can't come on.
That's basically it. Yeah, that's the prime requisite. Yes.
So, why don't you give me the elevator pitch for your podcast or podcasts?
Well, I only have one running now. I've only ever really done one podcast at a time. But right now, our current project is the Switchcast, as you mentioned, and it is a podcast dedicated strictly to the Nintendo Switch. And we launched the day that the October trailer came out. And my longtime partner in podcasting, JV, and I just both kind of looked at each other when we saw that and said, yeah, no, we're doing this. This is our new thing. Before this, we had done the Pocket Players, which is our portable games podcast. We used to cover just handhelds, iPhone, Android, Vita, 3DS, a little more broad of a thing. Before that, I did a whole bunch of little video game ones from the My Gamer, Radcast, Audio Blast, and eventually I've started out, though, with the Palette Tribune, which was a all Pokemon podcast, which was probably my first start in this whole chain of events. I've just been in love with podcasting, so you pod about what you know, and I'm sure you know that deal. You start talking about games because that's what you know, and that's what you could probably say the most interesting things about.
Yeah, I mean, it's also a lot of fun to talk about games. Are you having trouble coming up we got 32 days left as of this recording before the Switch comes out? Are you starting to wonder, boy, are we going to have much to talk about, or is Nintendo going to be keeping their cards close to their chest?
Well, I mean, that was definitely a concern when we started it, and we started out just saying, all right, we're going to do one episode, maybe a month until it comes out. And then obviously when it's out, we'll have more to talk about. But it started out very easily. We started being bi-weekly right off the start, just from the rumors. I like to call them reports. Rumors sound like, it's just like people making stuff up and, in the back room gossiping. I like to, talk about the reports from the people who had leaks, and, we would discuss maybe the future. We would analyze that first trailer. We had a guest on to talk about the Major League Gaming kind of prospects of the Switch and maybe what games we could see going into that. So we talked about some of just the general gaming topics, but we tied them into what we saw for the Switch. And obviously last 2 weeks ago, we had the big reveal, the January press events, and we got 2 episodes back to back out of that. So we've actually had a surprising amount to talk about. And we're working harder at it than we thought. We were hoping this would be just kind of a easy street until it came out, but we're already, got way too much to keep up. And I have a lot of news that I want to catch up on this week alone now.
Nice. So, have you always been a super big Nintendo fan?
I would definitely say I'm not. I try never to be a fanboy of anything, right? I'm a Nintendo fan in that I'm a fan of quality games, right? I don't like Nintendo because they're Nintendo. I will never. I kind of get a little uncomfortable with that whole mentality in general, which I do feel that a lot of people have. But I definitely am a fanboy for quality, and Nintendo does tend to make a greater consistency of quality than most other companies. So that's where I'm at. But if I didn't feel that this was going to be a great system, I wouldn't be into it. And in fact, I didn't buy the Wii U. And there's a lot of other major Nintendo steps that I've skipped over the years. So I follow them when I think they have something strong.
So what was like your your earliest memory as a gamer? Like for me, it was playing Donkey Kong at my grandmother's bar. What about you?
Gaming wise in general, I think my father used to take us out to, early on, my dad wasn't like a super religious guy, but he would take us to church on Sundays, when my brother and I were young. Right. And, just kind of like, look, I'm going to do the right thing. I'll get them started. And then after a certain age, it's up to them to keep doing it. But after Sunday, he'd go to his bar, we had a bar by Sheepshead Bay in Brooklyn called Tamaqua. And they had a couple of arcade machines. They would give me and my brother like a fistful of quarters, and we go play on those. And I loved that. And I would be playing on whatever arcade games they had that month. And, he'd go and kill a few hours at the bar as a sailor would. And that's probably probably some of my earliest memories of gaming, I guess. Yeah, like that there. And we would also go by the Navy store, like the PX, and they would have in the display case all the video games, and my brother and him would go shopping for like fishing gear, and I just stare at that case at what new Nintendo games would be coming out for like, the whole time there.
Yeah, when I was a kid, we used to go to Woolworth, and I think it was a chain. Wow. And we would go to Woolworth, we'd ride our bikes down to the Woolworth, and up on the second floor, they had a Super Nintendo display unit, and my friends and I would take turns playing 10 minutes of Super Mario World over and over because none of us had the money to actually buy the system. Then, we'd get those disapproving looks from the people who worked there, and they'd chase us off after a while, and we'd come back a couple days later and do it all over again until one of us finally got our hands on it. What was your first like home console? Or were you like a PC guy?
I got my father did event. He bought me an NES when I'm pretty sure if it wasn't like right when it was released, it was maybe like a week or two after. And I was pretty young. If I could remember, what year did it come out? Did Nintendo release?
85, I think.
I'm sorry, what?
I think it came out in 1985.
That sounds about right because I was about 5 or 6 at that year, and so. I remember getting it and hooking it up and putting in. It was Mario Brothers, and I maybe there's something wrong with the controller, but it didn't work, and I did not know how to move Mario, or maybe we put it in the player 2 slot. I don't know, but I just stood there and watched the timer go down as we tried to figure out how to get this thing to work, and we were just like, okay, I can't make it work, but what's going to happen when that timer runs out? And we're like waiting so anxiously for it to go, and then he. Boop, 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 doop, 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 doop. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Now let's figure out how to actually make this thing work.
That's awesome. I remember, I don't know, it might have been 3 or 4 months ago. Somebody had posted on Reddit a video of Nintendo tech support video. Like,
okay, yeah.
Some guy working in a department store from back in the 80s, and all these people would come in and ask him, this is something that they would show to employees on how to repair Nintendo consoles. And this woman came in and she's like, this controller doesn't work. And the guy was like, now, are you plugging it into the 2 port or are you plugging into the 1 port? And she's like, the 2, of course. And he's like, no, it's a single player game, you want to plug it into the 1 port. And she slaps her head and is like, oh, how could I be so foolish? So my question to you is that what the problem was? Again, I was 5 years old, so it's very hard to like trust any memory I have from then. But I do feel like that is what went wrong with it. But again, so few memories as a child you can even trust as existing as you remember them. So you're a podcaster. What's your main job? What's your main? You're like, how do you make a living?
Oh, I'm a copywriter. I actually, I write advertisements and stuff like that. And I've worked for mostly actually companies in the mobile gaming industry. So I am involved in the gaming industry as my day job. But I write like iTunes descriptions of stuff, or I polish up copy, that kind of thing.
That's cool. Is there like any particular game that people might recognize, or are you not allowed to say that stuff?
I try to keep, I try never to mention that. In fact, people could probably figure out what company I worked for just by, I purposely would never talk. I would never personally handle talking about news or reviews of any games that were from my company. I'd have one of my co-hosts do it. So if anyone listened to like the Pocket Players enough and they notice like, hey, why is Casey always skipping or passing on to his co-host like every game from this company, they might be able to figure out what it was. But I generally just don't even try to acknowledge it on the show. I just keep that separate. Wouldn't want anyone to think I'm biased on anything either,
Right, exactly. So, okay, so you said earlier that you have a whole lot of work in front of you running the podcast. How many hours a week do you think you put into your podcast outside of what we are actually hearing on the RSS feed?
All right, well, let's see. If I record, let's say, like a 90-minute podcast that I'll try, probably edit down, it usually takes me, at least the way I'm editing now, it takes me at least twice as long to edit it as it is to like record it, because I've become very finicky about like cutting out, gaps of silence. There's some episodes that have taken me even longer because of just some weird technical problem that had during the show. But I guess then there's also like making the show notes and tracking everything down. So I'd probably say I probably easily put in at least 6 hours of time, not including the recording itself, just from, gathering notes and like, reading an article here that I'm going to talk about on the show. I mean, stuff I'd probably be doing anyway, like reading Switch news and releases, but organizing it and then editing the show and then promoting the show. I mean, I spent a lot of my time just making sure it's on Twitter, trying to build up that community. I got a big Facebook group going, and all that sort of stuff takes, just a lot of time, and then it probably adds up to at least 8 hours a week, I'd say.
Wow. So I saw that you actually got to get your hands. Actually, I was at the gym earlier and I was listening to your latest episode while I was running. So thank you for making that a little more bearable. But I heard that you got to get your actual hands on the Switch itself when they had their Treehouse event. So what's your initial impressions of that device? I mean, obviously, you're still pretty hyped on it. What do you think?
Oh, no, I loved getting my hands on that controller because that's really what makes this the Switch, right? I mean, we have it in the tablet mode, which is probably how I'm going to play it more than anything. So I'll say this much, though. The biggest thing I mentioned, the only negative I could say about it was playing it from a big TV and going straight to tablet mode was difficult in that it looks so pretty on a big screen. And then, it's still beautiful on that big tablet screen, but side by side, it kind of makes me want to play it more on the TV. And I'm like 90% a mobile gamer. So I might have to never use it on a TV just to not make it feel like I'm playing like a diminished version of it on the tablet. It's the same reason I can't ever go back to like a regular DS. I have to always play with an XL sized DS.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I had the original DS, and when as soon as I got the bigger one, I was like, I can never play that little tiny one again. It's just too cramped.
Right. So that's the only fear I have, is that playing it at home will make playing it on the go feel like I'm not getting the full experience I want out of it. But other than that, I love getting my hands on that controller because I was trying out all the different permutations of it right away. Like, okay, here's it with the the grip, and I was try it as the solo split up pieces, and then I put it as the two, just having the two controllers just kind of disconnected from the grip and at my side. And I've said that is how controls are meant for me. Obvious, like it was so relaxed and just felt so right that I can see that's how I'm going to end up playing almost all of my games like that. Just not having a controller like held up to your chest and in your center just made me realize that's so unnatural. This is how I'm supposed to play.
Did you try playing Zelda like that?
I did. in fact, I had the because they always have the person who like kind of guides your experience to make sure you're seeing everything. And I was trying out the things in my own pace there, but he was like, okay, now try it in tablet mode. It's like, I've tried tablet mode on some stuff, right? I'm still getting the hang of like, I'm going through the permutations of the controls on my own way here. And, but yeah, I did try them all out with Zelda, and everything I can definitely see feeling right for certain people. And even holding it in tablet mode felt pretty good. I mean, the weight of the tablet is just the right that like I don't feel like my arms are going to get tired of doing it if I'm sitting on the train for too long, and the screen was just the right kind of brightness, and it all came together really nicely. It's kind of that combination. It does feel like that combination I've always said of if only mobile games like a tablet or an iPhone game had a controller with it, it would take over the world, because mobile games are like the fastest spreading type of game. Now that we have something that can be treated like that, but with a controller and have those kind of AAA level games on it, I could see it just exploding and taking over this whole, market.
Yeah. Part of me always said that it's an unpopular opinion, but for a long time I said that I thought that Nintendo should just make a controller for iOS and sell all their games with the requirement that you have a controller for that game. That's obviously not the way that they went. I'm actually pretty happy that they went the way that they did. So just based on what I've seen, I do have a specific question about controls for you. And I don't know if you can answer that because maybe it didn't occur to you when you were playing it. But let's say that you're playing a Zelda game or did you check out Zelda or Splatoon 2?
I did. I checked out both of those games.
Okay. Yeah. So if you were playing with one controller in each hand, not connected with the grip or whatever.
Right.
And you had to use motion control. Did you have to use both motion control at the same time, or could you just control the movement with the left stick and then the motion control with the right?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the nunchuck style?
Yeah, I didn't see anything that required... See, Zelda didn't really use the motion as far as unless I wasn't swinging the sword with that.
Well, not sword swinging, but like when
like
you
Splatoon
use the
had the
arrow
aiming thing where you
yeah.
could aim with one of the Joy-Cons, and I think it was a press of one of the buttons on the left Joy-Con that activated that. So the left Joy-Con wasn't being used for motion, but a button pressed on it activated, I'm now aiming with the right button, with the right Joy-Con.
Okay, so they are independent of each other. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah, and in fact, if you arms, like if you, let's put it this way, like if you swivel both of them to your right, you move right. You swivel them both to your left, you move left. If they both swivel inward, you're blocking. So each one is independent. So depending on where they're facing in regards to each other, it could be a different command altogether.
Right. So, okay, let's talk a little bit about ARMS if you don't mind. That game, sure. When I saw their God, what's the word I'm looking for? Their presentation for it.
Yeah.
Well, if they started with the 1-2 switch and then they moved to ARMS, and first off, when I saw 1-2 switch, I was like, oh man, this is not going to be good. And then they saw ARMS and I was like, oh no, this isn't good either. But then the next day at the treehouse, they were talking about it and showing it, and I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm more intrigued now." What's your reaction to ARMS?
I think ARMS has potential, but I have not seen quite yet. Like, it is a fighting game in a very true sense. In that, you ever heard like the term Yomi, like with fighting game, or like people who like try to read each other's moves?
No, I've never heard that term. If you ever get into fighting games,
this is kind of a core concept of, basically you play the rock, paper, scissors game, attack, throw, or block, or the general rock, paper, scissors of those games. And it has that at its core. And it's on a level that anyone can grasp. And then there's a few other little extra levels with, how you customize your hand weapons, which kind of gloves, and that opens up some strategies for you. And in addition, each character had their own little flavor or special ability, like the ninja who kind of disappears when he dodges. If it has more of that, I think it can catch on, but I haven't felt the uniqueness of the characters. Like even a new player who's never played Street Fighter before can look at Chun-Li and see how different she fights than E Honda, right?
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's what I feel like this game I haven't really felt yet. I mean, I only played 1 or 2 matches of it, but watching the videos, everyone kind of felt similar with maybe like a dash of something unique. If the characters are very like Overwatch level, like, oh, this character totally changes how you're going to fight, and there's a whole new strategy if you're going against this guy, then it can hit that level of interest that I think it could take off. But I just haven't seen or witnessed anything like that level yet that will make me feel like this is a game that's going to really catch on and take off as a fighting game for everybody.
Did you get to try it without motion controls, just button presses?
No, I only tried it out with they only had it connected for the motion controls.
All right. When let's compare it to Wii Sports Boxing. It just I play that game with my son, and it turns into us flailing around like crazy people. Did you feel like that the Joy-Cons had enough? God, what's the word I'm looking for?
Responsiveness?
Yes, that's exactly it. Did you feel like they were responsive enough that you didn't have to flail around like a crazy person?
Well, now that you mention that, it makes me realize part of the interesting aspect of the design is that, like in Wii Boxing, your punch is like maybe a few inches in front of you, right? A punch lasts an instant. In ARMS, when you throw an attack, you are committing that hand to several seconds. It has to reach far. Sometimes it does a curve. So flailing your hand doesn't do anything. It's when you throw that punch, it's now committed. It's in air and it's a dead arm until that connects and it retracts. So you can't just flail about. You have to pick the moment that you want to launch that hand. And if you launch it at a bad time, if you're just flailing about, your opponent, if it goes in a direction that's not even near your opponent, he's like, okay, his left arm is totally defenseless now. Now I have a chance to hit him where he has nothing to block with. So yeah, I don't think there's a worry about flailing or button mashing, so to speak, in this. But as soon as I flick that hand, it goes out. It might, I think it's the kind of thing that might take a little more control to throw it the instant you want, because I could see myself getting a little hyped and just like, jolting my arm a little too early or something like that. But, it felt like it threw the punches when I wanted to. But like I said, you have to wait till it comes back before you could do anything else with it.
All right. I read the article that you wrote the other day.
Oh.
Or maybe it was today. I can't remember. Was it today?
I posted it maybe around like 11 o'clock last night.
Oh, okay. So I read it today, and I really liked how you said that these are not hidden prices. They are. How did you phrase it?
There's additional options, or just optional purchases.
Optional purchases. That's what it was.
Ways to customize the system for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. While I agree with you on most of that, my one sticking point, I feel like, is the I totally get why the controllers are the price that they are. I get why the Pro Controller is the price that it is. It's got a lot of tech in there. The Joy-Cons, I feel like, hey, guess what? It has 2 Bluetooth radios in it. So there's a good reason why these things are fairly expensive. And plus, you're getting 2 with the console. But the dock, man, that drives me crazy. Like $90.
I think I may have posted even a link. Someone was showing me, and I think it's just the state of the technology. I was hoping the docks would be like $40 and it would just be, oh, yeah, I'll just get a $40 dock for my, my grandma's house, so I don't have to bring my whole setup when I visit her or something like that. But someone showed me a link that like just a basic AV converter cable. I'm horrible with the technology, but they showed me basically a thing on Staples that just does the conversion from whatever HDMI to whatever the Switch uses there. and it's like $70 for just this little box that's like the size of my hand and a couple of wires out there. And so that makes me think that, yeah, it is just the price of that kind of technology these days. And the Nintendo dock uses a little extra proprietary stuff. So it's not Nintendo trying to like gouge anything or anything like that. It's just, that's what the technology costs today. And it kind of stinks, but it's really nothing they can do about that, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. I never thought to look at the price of other HDMI to USB-C converters. That's very interesting. So, having played a bunch of the games at the Treehouse event, other than Zelda, because that's probably everybody's that's the thing that everybody wants the most. What's the one game that you walked away from there saying, "Man, I'm buying this"?
I mean, I want to get into Splatoon. I played it a lot at my friend's house when when he had the Wii U, and I've never been into a first person shooter before. And that's probably the first one I might like honestly give a shot and be like, I want to be a competitive Splatoon player. But probably the games I'm most hyped about weren't on hand at the event itself. I'm trying to remember now. Like there was a couple of games that I was definitely wanting to buy, but now I'm like blanking on them. Like I was really hyped about that. Was it Project Octopath Travelers?
That game looks amazing, but my God, that name.
Yeah, I know. I really hope it's a working title, but Square and their naming schemes are just ridiculous these days.
That's almost as bad as Ultra Street Fighter 2, the final showdown traveler thing. I don't know what it is, but it's crazy. But yeah.
I assume they're doing that intentionally, but at the same time, it doesn't absolve them from it.
But yeah, Project Octopath Traveler looks really good. Just from a style characteristic. That game is definitely going to be day one purchase for me when it comes out, especially if it's turn-based. I feel like Square's gotten away from turn-based combat. I've been playing Final Fantasy 15, and that game, while very impressive, it doesn't feel like a Final Fantasy game. Which is really disappointing because I'm I really enjoy turn-based JRPGs. So I hope that Octopath Traveler, whatever that game's called, turns out to be a turn-based game like that. Was there anything else that stood out to you?
I'm trying to remember now. I mean, this guy is a series that I always like in theory, but I never like can put in the 400 hours it takes to like actually experience them. Sonic Dash was cool only because, again, that's a series. I never was like the Sega. I was on the, back in the old console wars. I was staunchly on the Nintendo side of things then and never touched Sonic, but I can respect them. And I've always kind of wanted to explore those games. And I got to play that a little bit. And I was like, oh, I could see why people were into this, man. I finally see what like my 12-year-old friends were like arguing for back in the day.
If you get the chance, there's a book. I can't remember who wrote it, and I don't have my iPad here, so I can't find the title or the name of the author. But it's called Console Wars, and it's basically the story told from the point of view of the CEO of Sega of America during the development of the Sega Genesis and basically their fight with Nintendo in the 80s. It's a really good book, and I highly recommend it if you're interested in that kind of thing.
That'd be cool. No, that'd definitely be cool. I kind of want to look up my list of like, because I know there's another game that I was like really hyped to get.
Half-Baked Heroes? No, not Half-Baked Heroes.
I'm blanking on it right now. I don't know if you have a list around you right now or something like that.
No, I don't. Was there one called Half-Baked Heroes?
I have a list right here of some of the games. Let's see if any of these ring a bell. I Am Setsuna looks really cool.
I've been looking at that and have I've seen that on Steam a million times, and it's been on my wish list, and I just haven't pulled the trigger yet. And now I'm really happy that I've waited, because I'd prefer to have it on a system that I can take with me.
Oh, Fire Emblem Warriors, that I will eat up. That's the game I was trying to remember right now. Is that I'm a longtime Fire Emblem fan. I mean, I kind of wish there was a strategy RPG of it available on Switch, because I mean, they announced one is coming, but a little further down the line, because Fire Emblem is just like one of my main series. I'm a huge strategy RPG fan, and that would really satiate that hunger I have.
So you say you're a big Fire Emblem fan. Did you play before Awakening, or was that like your first one? Because that was the first time I had ever even heard of Fire Emblem. Was Fire Emblem Awakening?
Yeah, I played the one of the ones on GBA. I didn't play all of them, because I did get like burnt out after playing like 3 of them in a row when I first. But I played it might have been the first one on GBA. It might have just been called Fire Emblem then, but it was the one with the green-haired swordsman called Lyn in the intro.
Mm-hmm.
And it really pulled me, because it had what was essentially a complete tutorial in like 10 missions, right? And it was this whole complete storyline where Lyn takes you around and like you help her out and overcome whatever like storyline. But it felt like this complete story. And you come at the end, it's like, all right, you've solved the problem. You've chased away the bad guys. They could have ended the game there. But no, that was just a 10 mission tutorial of what all the possible things you'll encounter through the game. Now we can start the main storyline, and you know all the tools. We don't have to like hold your hand for anything going forward. And the game got much harder after that.
So I know that you said that you didn't have a Sega Genesis growing up.
Correct.
If you can get the chance, if you are a fan of Fire Emblem, then you absolutely should play, and it just jumped away from my brain. What is the name of the game? It's
Vandal Hearts?
No, it's not Candle Heart. I've never actually heard of Candle Hearts.
Vandal Hearts. Hearts.
Not Vandal Hearts. Candle Hearts. That Candle Hearts is my Bon Jovi cover band. No, it's not Vandal Hearts. It's Shining Force. Have you ever played Shining Force?
I've played Shining Force on iOS. I downloaded that.
All right, good. I just wanted to make sure that you had access to or had heard of that.
I was very impressed, because that actually, I'll give it. That stands on definitely toe-to-toe with the Fire Emblem series, and even goes further into like storyline and like actual RPG than the Fire Emblem series. And that, like, you walk around towns and you will meet characters, and there's a pretty decent plot in that game that I felt, and it plays, like Fire Emblem itself in battles. But yeah, I'll definitely give Shining Force mad props in that genre.
Right. So what is something that you do for fun that has absolutely nothing to do with video games?
Well, I am an avid camper, and I have spent most of my life involved with Boy Scouts. I was a Boy Scout as a child, and once I hit 18, I became an assistant scoutmaster, and that has generally been my go-to, extracurricular activity, I guess you could say. But I did finally this year tell my troop, all right, I have to kind of like focus on some other things. I've been spending a lot of time trying to work on the podcast projects, and, I have a wife and I have a family, and I have a job. I don't have a family, but I was like, I had to finally fade out working with my troop, but my wife and I both like to go camping together. So that's probably like my number one, trying to live adventures in the real world kind of fun.
Very cool. All right. So thank you so much for coming by. Where is it that people can track you down?
Well, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, and Pocket Cast. If you just look for the Switchcast, Switchcast is one word. Our homepage is theswitchcast.com, and you'll find links to all our articles, our Twitter feed, our Facebook group are there, and our Patreon group. If you seem to like us enough and you want to throw us some cash, that is one good way to support us there.
All right. So thanks again for coming by. I had a lot of fun talking to you.
Hey, anytime. I'm happy to talk.
All right. Take it easy.